Rain could have been a risk for the CW.
It was a risk,
period
absolutely.
drama. But did you always have a sense that the show would find an audience?
Yes and no. I wasn't surprised, but I thought that, the universe, as it were, was ready for sort of a modern interpretive historical fantasy show, which is, I guess, essentially what we are.
Yeah.
Historical drama has been quite popular for the last decade, and, you only have a genre running for so long before people start playing with the format, which is what we've done.
I think even as we were making the pilot, we're like, what are we making? Like, none of us really knew. And then when it all came together and we saw the finished product, it's like, oh, okay. It's a weird show, but there's a certain addictive quality about it that apparently it wasn't just me that thought so. It's obviously resonating with audiences around the world, even in markets where it's not on the air. People are finding it and watching it and loving it.
Early on in the season, the show focused very much on the love triangle between Mary and Francis and
Yes.
Bash.
It's a tried and true formula.
Yeah, were you pleased that the show kind of moved on from that quite quickly?
Very much so. I think that while that is a formula that works, it's somewhat tired at this point. And it's very easy to make a show based off a love triangle, but then when the love triangle ends, so does the show. There's not really much more that you can do after that if that's been your main focus, which is why I think our show works so well and has the potential to continue on. It's not just about romance.
The first season obviously climaxed with Henry's death. Mm-hmm. Season 2 will presumably see Francis taking charge as king.
That's right.
How do you think Bash will fit into court? Is he going to be a threat to Francis' rule?
Well, I think Catherine's certainly going to think so, to Francis and his younger brothers. So we'll see how that. I'm sure there'll be some tension there, but I think what we started to see toward the end of the season is an emotional understanding between Francis and Bash, and that maybe their relationship is going to be okay. So. With any luck, he'll have use for Bash around court because really, Bash was there because the king allowed him to be and wanted him to be. But now the king's dead, it's really up to Francis to fight for it because Catherine's certainly not going to want him around.
No. Now, the plague is also oncoming, which is sort of Bash's fault. A little, kind of.
A little bit.
So how do you think that's going to impact the show moving forward?
That's a very good question. I'm curious about that myself because the plague is a very ethereal enemy. Bash has always had the darkness. He's always had that focus and that sense of purpose. So even with a weird arranged marriage or bad love life, like watching his brother get it on with all that stuff, he's always had this one thing to cling to, terrible as it was. Now that's gone, and the new enemy is just some random illness sweeping the land that he may or may not have caused. So I don't know how you fight that, and I don't know. I think in season 2 we're going to see him struggle to find a sense of purpose, and that goes along with that.
Mary obviously had such a long and amazing life. How are you sort of hoping to get to play out the entirety of that and see Rain?
Yes and no. I would love to see her deal with the grief over Francis's death and go through her next marriage. I'd love to see her go through some of the political turmoil and opposition that she faced in Scotland shortly after she returned from France. I would love to see her alleged murder of her second husband and her having a child and that playing out with her third husband. On the other hand, doing the same show 8 months out of the year for 75 hours a week for the next 10 years sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
It sounds exhausting. I can't even imagine I would be living in Toronto forever, which is fine, but I like LA and I like my friends. So I think we're going to get a good long run. So I'm happy with 4 or 5 years?
4 or 5 years.
Maybe?
That sounds good.
And I can buy my house.
Yeah.
I think we can I'll just let the writers know this is what I want to cover in the next 3 or 4 seasons. So let's just do that.
Yeah.
And then I'll go.